Welcome to Compliance and Digital Trust Talks, the podcast where we unpack what really happens at the intersection of e commerce performance, MarTech strategy, and data compliance. Today's episode is about the MarTech Iceberg, which what leadership often overlooks when layering tools, scaling fast, and ignoring the long term risk of tech and compliance debt. My name is Ali Hashmi, and I am the CEO of an e commerce development company, Tekglide. It's an agency that helps B2C and D2C brands grow without collapsing under complexity. I'm chatting today with my good friend Qusai Mihaseri, who is a Martech and compliance strategist with over 20 years of experience having helping enterprises navigate through the murky waters of data privacy, marketing tools, and risk governance. Welcome, Qusai.
Thanks for having me, Ali. My name is Qusai Mihaseri. I am the general manager for Xpediant. I'm part of a company called Qualified Digital. We are really in the MarTech space. We go everything from creative to customer experience to tech. But in the last, 2 decades, as Ali was saying, what I have seen, I've been at kind of the intersection of, digital transformation and regulated industry. And what I've seen over and over again is that leadership underestimates the risk, the compliance risk, or any other risks that are involved with, our stacks, and not just the MarTech stack, but anything to do with content, right? And the exposures, are many. I think what the other thing, and I'm sure Ali, you're seeing this as well, is that everywhere you go, whether we are talking at Qualified Digital or we're talking to our customers, everybody's asking about like, what are you doing with AI? And my question back usually is, well, what do you want to do with AI? As far as, is it improving your, revenue by some ways, or is it just something nice and shiny? And is it affecting your compliance? Right. So I think this is a timely topic. I'm kind of looking forward to unpacking like what's real, what's hype, and kind of really getting into, you know, these questions that we're going to do with the Martech Iceberg.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I mean, I know that AI has been the talk of the town, right? Same in my case, when I meet with my customers, that's the first thing that comes to mind. They don't even realize a lot of it things you still can do without AI also.
Right.
So it's just like, being one of that, kind of shiny things out there. So let's to kick us off, let's ask ourselves, what exactly is a technical debt in MarTech? To say.
So yeah, good question, because to me it's just layers and layers of customization, right? So whether you're using Adobe or Viva or Salesforce, I think what I see companies do over and over again is that they'll keep buying a lot of things off the shelf and then trying to piece it together. So as an example, you'll have an affiliate in Europe, building out a regulatory workflow on top of Viva, and then you'll have several other affiliates building their own stuff, while the central office in the US is building theirs on Adobe. And over time, I mean, everybody might think they have the, best full stack, but really they've got a lot of technical debt, and that's kind of what happens. We've also had more recently a company that was a big Adobe shop, and they decided to do part of their stuff with Salesforce. Now, these are two very large competitors, and they
Mhm.
don't work well very together. And
Right.
so, the integrator is stuck in the middle thinking, well, I've got to do this in Adobe and this with, and so over time you're building that technical debt, right? And so
Yeah.
that's really what I see as MarTech debt.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. And to me, to us, like when we see tech debt, is like really it's the cost of convenience, right? If you want to be quick to market, if you want to, lot of time in the names of MVP, we try to come up with something not with a proper architecture or hard coding instead of building modular things that can scale. So it's really can hurt you in the long term, and a lot of big issue in the world of e-commerce is about performance, right? So we work a lot with fashion brands and apparel brands where they are global companies in multiple markets, and the common issue is that our product listing pages are slow, performance is slow, and the checkout is lagged, for a variety of reasons. And when we unearth the issues, we find out there are a lot of these third party third-party tools which are in there, third-party scripts, all kind of like these band-aid fixes that have been done over the period of time, which is now hurting progress. And now it's, sometimes too late, and you just have to go back to the drawing board and then kind of start looking into those architecture pieces and kind of redo the work, which hurt the business in the long term, and just overall also kind of slows down their revenue.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's the real kicker, right? Because I always tell my clients, any tool you bring in, you've got to look at the compliance requirement, right? Because you might hit a compliance snag even before you start getting value from the tool, right? So that's something to think about as well. But as we kind of navigate this, how does compliance kind of risk manifest with your clients?
Yeah, so I mean, like Kusai, in your world, obviously in pharma, there are obviously a lot of these industry-related compliance, right? In our industry, there are not that many industry-related compliance. Yeah, sure, there are these GDPRs and other European kind of regulations in place, but a lot of it in what we see compliance is about is translates to the customer trust, right? That's what we are trying to earn here, right? So every pop-up that you see on our website, or like a cookie banner, or like a third party pixel which you put on your website, you really have to ask yourself as a merchant that question, that do I trust them with the data that that I'm sent that they are receiving for my customers. So I've seen a lot of times, like the B2C and D2C brands, obviously that in the world of e-commerce, especially for the fashion and apparel industry, Shopify is a great platform which a lot
Right.
of these companies have been using, SaaS platforms. And there's so many apps out there with Shopify, and sometimes uh, the merchants don't or the merchants or their tech partners don't even vet these apps, and they don't know what these apps are doing. Sometimes they may be sending out customer emails to god knows where, right? And that could possibly result it could be result into a big issue down the road, not in terms of just losing sales, but also running into GDPR fines, and also just overall losing the trust of your customers. So yeah, I mean, these third party tools, these apps that you're working on, looking for shortcuts, you have to really understand that is this something that going to ultimately hurt your customer trust ultimately.
Right.
uh, you know
That's true.
uh, and this is the this to me, it's like just like a trust bomb that is just waiting to go off.
Yeah. There's a lot of those things, insidious stuff, right? That people can, stuff happening in your site that you're not even aware of, right? That you got to. So, for us, at least to me, compliance is really like a chain. It's a one weak link, kind of breaks the whole chain, right? So, for example, even with AI, right? The AI can generate a lot of content, and it might pick up the right claims, for example, for a pharma company. But if they don't do the fair balance or don't do the safety things correctly and put it, out, I mean, the regulators are going to hit you with some huge fines. And so every little thing that, mostly in regulated industries, it's even more, but the cost of not being compliant is like super high, right? And what I wonder about is like, why, if this is truly an issue, why do leaders, fail to see this iceberg? Like,
Yeah, I mean, the iceberg is invisible, right? So if you look at from the business side, marketing or the business teams, they are chasing speed. They want quick, performance of the site. They want conversions. Tech is chasing after stability, and nobody is looking at the glue, which is the data architecture in between, right? So executives, typically they have these fancy dashboards. Now there are great tools out there that can build you all these kind of fancy tools. You can see your revenues up, your conversion is high, you have a great, our return on your ad spend, right? And they think all is fine, but really under that, there is all that spaghetti code that the developers are like, working with day in day out, and
right,
nobody's looking at putting in all these kind of duct tapes, third party apps, and just hacks around all over the place to help you improve performance. But this is just a ticking time bomb, right? So I've seen, like, everything is going fine with our customers. Their sites are performing great, but they are gradually losing out on performance. They're losing those their SEO rankings in Google, because Google is looking for a lot of other things. They're looking at your core web vitals, right? How well it performs, what is your time to first byte, and there are other measures that Google is looking all the time. And not just Google anymore. Now we have these LLMs as well, right? Which are also
that's
tracking
right.
your
They're looking.
website and
Yep.
your data. So you have to kind of understand that whatever you're building from ground up has the correct foundation, right? Because ultimately, obviously it's going to impact your revenue. You lose sales, but you will lose, your customer trust as well. And these days you're just like it's just you just have a few seconds to attract your customer attention, and if you don't have that, then you
You
pretty
lose.
much lose out. So
Yeah. No, I think you hit the right thing on the dashboard piece because that's what I see. I see leadership looking at dashboards from marketing, dashboards from IT, and everything is green. The thing is that IT needs compliance to tell them, or no, compliance actually needs IT to tell them that whether they're being compliant. IT depends on data from marketing, and marketing depends on regulatory. So I mean, I think there is this chain of things that there's no dependency mapping, right? So that's, I think, the biggest reason that leaders, I feel today, don't see it because they're just seeing everything green on the dashboards, right?
yeah, that's true. Yeah. So what do you think the industry leaders should do to address this issue?
Well, I mean, there are several things, right? For me, I I would think a governance council is probably one of the biggest things that I usually recommend. It's where you get marketing, regulatory, IT, all the stakeholders in a room, because then you have some shared responsibility, right? Because until then, everybody is working in silos, and so that's never going to happen, right? The other thing I would think we should do is think about capabilities, right? Instead of saying, well, I think we should get Adobe Experience Cloud for X, this and that, we should be saying, I want to reduce our regulatory cycle from 6 weeks to 2 weeks. I want my market, content velocity to be X, right? Look at capabilities rather than like tools. And then the third thing I would suggest is sunset plans, right? Basically, back to our technical debt stuff, right? People buy products all the time and then never sunset them. So having a product that's not used is actually going to cause some leakage, some audit risk. So have a set kind of plan on sunsetting. I think is a big thing that so like two or three of these things, I think will address some of the problems.
Yeah, I think you brought in a great point about the sunset plan. I mean, whenever we get any project or any client we're working on, the first thing we do is we audit, and we find so many apps, so many tools out there that are just there because, they're not doing anything, they are not useful, but everybody is scared to take them off because they don't know what's going to happen if they're
Right.
not there. So
It's
as
been
we see that
sold.
all the
Nobody
time.
knows what it does.
So nobody knows what it's going to do because nobody knows the history of that particular app or particular tool and why it was
Right.
used. So that's why we see that it's not like really a tool problem, it's become like a people problem, right? There are too many apps owned by different teams, right? So
Right.
I mean, if we example, one of our bigger clients, which are like they are in the apparel business, and they're in multiple markets, and there is no true source of truth for the data, right? So e-commerce platform has some data, then the ERP has some other part of the data. There are 3PL software. There are these other like distribution company. Then they have this PLM, which has part of some product data in it. So it's just really all over the place. And what they don't realize that is basically increasing a lot of support costs, right? Because of that, because nobody really owns the data, so we don't know how the data is getting transferred, if the order is getting properly shipped to the customers or not. So that's one of the things we helped them with, was that we helped them consolidate some of these tools and kind of identify the clear source of truth. For example, ERP has to be the source of truth when it comes to the order and inventory data, and that kind of helped resolve a lot of these customer support calls, and ultimately also help improve customer satisfaction. So really consolidating tools can often help with savings and speed.
Okay.
So I mean, yeah. So what the real question here is that how do you balance speed with compliance, right? In an increasingly competitive environment in the world of AIs, and things are just getting fast and fast every day. So how do you balance speed with compliance? What are your thoughts on that,
Yeah,
Qusai?
I think compliance is going to become more of an issue with AI because it's not just regulated industries. Everybody's going to have to regulate AI itself, right? So I think again the false trade-off is you can be fast or compliant. And I firmly believe that you can do both, right? There are many ways to kind of make this happen, right? One is, use modular content, for example, right? Because if it's when you're thinking about Martech and you're thinking about content, if there is a way that you can modularize that and be able to use it for all your channels, whether it's websites or emails or IVAs or what have you, and if you can really apply modular content principles, you can have your marketing team create emails for doctors or your patients, within days versus weeks of time because you already have your content approved, right? And so you're just putting it in blocks. It's about like a blocks thing. The other thing you could do if is from technology, like from tools like XP Connect that integrate Adobe with Viva, right? That makes that whole content supply chain a whole lot faster because not only do you want to get your content created fast, but you want to package it up and send it to your regulatory systems fast, and then get those things sped up, and then give it back for publishing, right? So all of that, if you can kind of balance all of those things out with technology, with content, and just a little bit of mapping that dependency that we talked about earlier, I think you can make you can have it fast, you can go be faster to market, as well as be compliant.
Yeah, no, I think these are some great points that you brought here. Leaders in the digital world, they are just obsessed with growth hacks, right? Everybody just wants to increase their, conversions and get revenue, get, pretty much everywhere. So putting up like all the social media like TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and you name it, right? So is there a lot of these pixels getting added all the time, again, adding to the debt that you already have. Cart abandonment is a big issue in the world of e-commerce, right? And there are a lot of personalization tools out there, a lot of tracking happening. So I mean, with every hack you do, there is a shadow associated with that, right?
Right.
If you're not thinking about compliance at the same time, that shadow will eventually it'll catch up to you, right? And I generally tell the clients that fast is fine, but you need to. It's important that you cannot be reckless, though, right? I mean, you should be. It's okay to be fast. I mean, understand that, but you have to at the same time you have to keep that balance, because ultimately, what compliance is actually that it's the trust that the customer have on you. So
Yeah.
you can launch campaigns quickly, but only if you have built the foundations right. So I think that's a kind of an important area here. I know we just kind of got to the tip of the iceberg here,
Yes.
but
Yes.
hopefully we help people, our audience understand, or at least give them a glimpse of what we see in two different worlds of Martech and e-commerce, and they collide all the time.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate the platform here. Thanks, Kusai, for being here, and let's keep building responsibly.
No, thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm hoping we melted the iceberg a little bit so we can see more of the iceberg, and, and maybe see how how we can tackle these problems as as we evolve. As organizations evolve and as we evolve with AI as well. So thank you again.
Thank you.